and welcome to Geek History Lesson. I'm Ashley Victoria Robinson.
And I'm Jason Batman Henchman Inman. Welcome to your mind university, because Geek History Lesson is the podcast where we take one character, team, construct, something video game, toy, sometimes it's a fruit from pop culture, and we discuss it. You picked what character?
Jason Todd.
Now, why Jason Todd?
Because I love Robins, and we'd already done Dick Grayson and Tim Drake. Jason Todd is a character that we've bandied about a long time, kind of like Cyclops, trying to figure out where the best place to slot him in was. And this seemed like as good a place as any.
Now, I would imagine that Jason Todd, Red Hood, being such an important character as he is, that he was suggested by a lot of people probably over the years of Geek History Lesson. Man, years. Wow. Thank you guys for listening so long.
Thank you. And to the people, and we know who you are, who've been listening from the beginning, thank you so much.
All right. Who are the people that suggested this episode?
All right. So all of your TAs for this episode are SVDT0ES, that is a Tumblr name,
Woo.
Sam Baumgarten, Beardomancer, Sith Citizen, Chris McDonough, Andrew Louis Perry, Aaron Foley, ANDIT97, and Franny Silona. I'm sure I got that name
Franny
right.
Silona.
Right on. Thank you so much to everyone who requested Jason Todd. I am happy to bring this lesson to all of you.
All right, great. So let's move on into the first section of our podcast, the 10-cent origin, where Ashley is going to give you a brief Cliff Notes version of Red Hood in case you ever go to that fancy Gotham cocktail party and Bruce Wayne's like, you know who Jason Todd is? And you'd be like, yeah, Bruce Wayne, I do.
So Jason Todd is, of course, a DC Comics character. His full name is Jason Peter Todd.
Oh, I've never known his middle name.
All the Robins have middle names.
Yep.
He is the second Robin and prominently known as the Red Hood. His first appearance as Jason Todd was in Detective Comics number 357 and as Robin in Detective Comics number 366, so about 10 issues apart. As Red Hood, his first appearance is Batman number 635. He was created by Jerry Conway and Don Newton, and his team affiliations have been the Batman Family, Batman Inc., which Jason loves, Teen Titans, which I love, Challengers from the Beyond, The Outlaws, and the League of Assassins. And he has had a couple partnerships, including with Batman, Arsenal, Starfire, Rose Wilson, Damian Wayne, Artemis, Bizarro, and Scarlet. His abilities include he is a highly skilled person in hand-to-hand combat, expert marksmanship, high-tech equipment use, and weaponry. And he was famously voiced by Jensen Ackles in the Under the Red Hood animated feature film, which is also my favorite DC animated feature film.
Cool. All right, so let's move into the Meet Cute, where we're going to tell you, because we stole this from a romantic comedy, where we first meeted and cuted Jason Todd, Robin, or Red Hood, because it still counts. Ashley, where did you first meet Jason Todd?
So in the bygone days of 1996, when I was super getting into Robins in particular, and then by association comics, I learned from reading Tim Drake comics that there had been another Robin who had died named Jason Todd. Mm-hmm. So the first time I actually met Jason Todd was sort of in the mythology of Jason Todd. He did not appear on panel, but he was this figure that sort of loomed over Tim Drake's career as Robin. So I feel like I knew about him for a long time before I ever read about him.
I kind of say the same thing, because I kind of feel that if you read any Batman comic book in the 90s and you saw that glass case with the Robin suit, you knew exactly who that was. I kind of think I first became cognizant of who he was actually in The Dark Knight Returns when I read that in the mid-90s, because the Robin suit in that case is such an important plot point. But I will say that I believe Jason Todd as Robin shows up somewhere in Zero Hour. And I believe that he shows up there, and
he does.
And I think that was another. I was like, oh, he was Robin. But I honestly want to say that probably the first time I ever really, really met him, because I've never gone back to read the old Jason Todd stuff. I've only read his death. I've never read like his first intros or whatever. Probably Hush, Batman Hush, where he shows up threatening to slice old Tim Drake's throat.
That was the first time I met him, like on panel as well. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
I would say a lot of people of similar ages to us would have that answer.
There you go. Well, it's a big gap.
It is.
All right, so let's jump into History 101, the main meat of Geek History Lesson, where Ashley's going to tell you everything you need to know about Jason Todd in in-depth detail with such amazing ferocity that it's going to blow you away.
All right, guys, strap in. This is going to be a long one. So let's start a little bit with the publication history about why we decided we needed Jason Todd in the first place. So Len Wein, who was the Batman editor at the time and went on to be a very famous comic book writer, had to deal with the void that Dick Grayson left because he'd moved on to being Nightwing and to defining himself as a hero separate from Batman at the time. So he was like, you know what we're going to do? We're going to create another Robin.
Because there always needs to be a Robin.
There always needs to be a Robin. I believe that. I believe that to today. And so they called him Jason Todd. So now let's talk about his pre-crisis history. Yay! I'm going to tell you what happens in Jason Todd's first appearance because I went back and I read his first 10 issues.
Sure.
So Batman does battle with Killer Croc and Dick Grayson goes to the circus where he watches the Todd family perform, who are essentially carbon copies of the Flying Graysons.
I forgot about that.
Except they have red hair instead of black hair.
Okay.
Literally, it is exactly the same. And Jason Todd appears in 3 panels.
So Jason Todd's a carny, just like Dick.
Exactly.
Okay.
And Batman's...
Or an acrobat, I mean.
An acrobat, yes. But they do... Dick is on a date with this girl and who was also in the circus, and they call themselves carnies. So you're not wrong. And Batman is off fighting Killer Croc. That's the whole first appearance of Jason Todd.
Sounds like a riveting issue of Batman.
It is really not super great. Over the next 10 or so issues, Batman learns that Jason's family was murdered by mobsters who turn out to be working under the orders of Killer Croc.
Yep.
The same as the Graysons, basically. So Bruce Wayne decides that he's going to adopt this wayward boy and make him his sidekick because that's what you do.
Does Dick have anything to do with the idea of Batman adopting the idea, or is it more like Batman solo?
It is more Batman solo.
Okay.
He does tell Dick that he's going to do that, and Dick's like, "That's a good idea. You should do that."
Okay.
It worked out pretty okay for me.
It worked okay for me, and look, I'm with Alien Babes and the Teen Titans, Bruce.
Right now, yeah, during this time.
Hey.
So that's how Dick Grayson talks. Now let me tell you about Jason's first appearance as Robin.
Sure.
So in Batman 366, Batman is in South America because he's got to rescue Vicky Vale, who's been captured by militants.
In the 80s, Batman was very international.
He was.
Yep.
And at the same time, he has to take down the Joker because the Joker is also there.
In the 80s, the Joker also international.
Yes. During his final battle with the Joker, where Vicky Vale literally just stands around taking pictures, Robin shows up out of nowhere and beats the snot out of the Joker.
Well, interesting turnaround.
So, fun fact, this is the first time that Jason Todd dyes his hair black. He does it of his own accord so that people will think he's the same person as Dick Grayson, even though he is much smaller and less sexy. And second fun fact, the Joker threatens...
The less sexy is not I would say, an academic term. It's Ashley's own bias.
I would say it is completely academic. Second fun fact, the Joker threatens to kill Jason Todd here in his very first appearance as Robin. And if you know anything about Jason Todd's history, this is a very ominous threat.
Well, I want to bring that up. That is very interesting. And I hope in the idea of the creators, because, as we all know out here, everybody, Jason Todd is killed by the Joker.
Spoiler for like an almost 30-year-old plot point.
Well, yeah, and spoiler for something that Ashley's going to talk about probably in like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It is interesting, and I hope it was conscious on the creator's part that they killed him by the villain that he first faced.
Okay, I'm going to say this is when we come back to Jason Todd's post-crisis origin.
Yes.
His first villain is again the Joker. The Joker again threatens to kill him. So I'm going to assume that
it was intentional.
That this was somebody in editorial sat down and was like, it's got to be the Joker.
Interesting. Because there's another part of it where you could make it Killer Croc.
You could. Exactly.
Interesting. Okay.
But I like that the Joker's his first foe as Robin.
Yeah. It's very similar to what they do with, if you watch Doctor Who, they do with Amy.
Mm-hmm.
Amy's first monster is the angels, and the angels are what takes her out.
Yes. So in Jason Todd's third appearance, he is not allowed to dress as Robin because although Batman has agreed that they can be partners, he doesn't know if Jason can live up to Dick's legacy.
Fair point.
Which is true, and Jason does not live up to it.
Oh, hey.
He doesn't. He dies.
Well, come on.
He's also not a good Robin. I'm sorry. He's not. I love Jason Todd. He's a terrible Robin.
Okay.
So this first initial version of Jason Todd is unerringly positive, very jokey, and has a hard time taking things seriously.
Okay.
So Jason makes his own costume out of an old circus getup that looks surprisingly like Tim Drake's original costume in the 1990s.
Oh, really?
Because it's like a red, like kind of
with long sleeves?
Bodysuit with long green sleeves and long green legs.
Probably where they got the idea then.
Probably. And he's like, this was my old acrobat outfit. Isn't it great? The rest of his original era adventures are classic Batman and Robin Silver Age era stories, which means that they are kind of in no way special or unique in comparison to Dick Grayson.
Like fight the villain, take him out in one issue.
Yeah.
But Dick Grayson's Robin adventures were very similar.
They were.
Yeah.
But like they're fine. They're solid Silver Age storytelling, but there's nothing that separates them from the original Batman and Robin
From just the
team.
episodic nature of Batman fighting the villain, end of issue.
Exactly. Which is why I'm going to gloss over them.
Fine.
If you are a fan of this character, if you're a fan of Batman, or if you are a continuity junkie, they are definitely worth taking a look at. But as someone who recently looked at them, I don't think they're wholly necessary to the Jason Todd canon.
Okay, got it.
I enjoyed reading them because I'd been meaning to go back and spend some time with Jason Todd, and this was a great reason to do
I
it.
like you're like, I've been meaning to go back and spend some time.
He just needs a
with
hug.
old Jason
he just
Todd.
needs some emotional support. So
If you have a couple movie nights with Jason Todd, like, and give him a couple hugs, like, he'd be fine.
yeah, I mean, less sexy Dick Grayson, but still a good guy. So then,
Again, that's Ashley's bias, not academic in any ways.
if you think Jason Todd is sexy, feel free to tweet me.
Hashtag Jason Todd is sexy.
There you go. Then Crisis on Infinite Earths happened. Jason, really quick, what is Crisis on Infinite Earths?
Crisis on Infinite Earth is this massive DC event where DC had thousands of multiverses, so they created this character called the Anti-Monitor. The Anti-Monitor showed up, destroyed all the universes except for one, and so there's only one Earth now. There's no multiverse, and all of DC history was basically reset. Everything before this event did not happen.
So Batman, as a result, gets an entirely new origin in a story called Batman Year One, which is totally awesome, and I recommend...
Written by Frank Miller.
Yes, I recommend that you go and check it out. And with a darker, grittier Batman, happy-go-lucky Jason Todd didn't fit anymore. So Jason Todd and his origin get retold in Batman number 408 in a story called Did Robin Die Tonight? Written by Max Allan Collins with Chris Warner on art. Again, Robin death, very ominous for what is coming down the line.
It's a great title for a story, though.
It's also a really great origin.
Yeah.
Although a bad omen. So like Jason's first introduction, this issue opens with Batman and Robin fighting the Joker. Except this Robin is Dick Grayson, not Jason Todd. On the second page of the issue, Robin gets shot through the upper arm, falls over the side of a building, and manages to catch himself on a grappling cable.
You got it, Dick Grayson. Look at you go.
Look at him go. And Batman has to decide whether to save Robin or go after the Joker, who's going to escape in his Jokocopter. It's like
Jokercopter.
Jokopter. And Robin...
Jokopter.
Robin tells him to go, that he has to go after the Joker. And it takes
Batman,
it takes
go.
too long, and Robin falls several stories, but he does not die. Batman wants to go public and Batman wants to let the public think that Robin is dead so that Dick Grayson can pursue his destiny and become something beyond just a sidekick. Dick's kind of mad about that, but he ultimately agrees to it. The media of Gotham rally against Batman with accusation of child abuse since they think Robin died. It is a very fair point. Batman actually goes out of his way to tell Commissioner Gordon that Robin isn't dead, that it's just this ruse. Batman makes his yearly pilgrimage to Crime Alley on the anniversary of his parents' death, where he walks the streets there. And when he returns to the Batmobile, he discovers that a young boy has stolen the tires off of it, and he's actually pretty impressed.
I actually want to say that this is a very interesting point because there have been many versions of the Batmobile that have been shown with insane security measures.
Yeah.
So the fact that this kid with just a tire iron could take off the wheels is pretty impressive.
Well, it's the 80s.
Yeah.
So enter Jason Todd with biological black hair, and when he gets caught, he attacks Batman with his tire iron and runs away.
Yeah.
He hits him like right in the stomach with a tire iron.
You go, Jason.
This version of Jason Todd is a brat. Batman follows Jason back to his rundown apartment that he is squatting in and catches him smoking. Oh no! And we have an anti-smoking PSA right in the middle of the issue. And Jason reveals that his mother is dead and his father is in prison and he has nowhere to go.
So he's an orphan.
He is an orphan. So now some background that happens before the events of this issue, but is revealed like in narrative off panel later on.
Got it.
So Jason Todd was a child of Willis and Catherine Todd and was raised in Gotham City. His father was a petty crook who ended up serving a prison sentence, and even after the sentence was served, he did not return home to support his family. That left Jason alone with his drug-addicted mother, who he tried to take care of by ripping off car parts and selling the tires for cash. Sadly, his mother would soon die of an overdose and he would be left alone. He fended for himself just as he had taken care of his mother before by continuing to rip off car parts.
All right.
So he's pretty self-sufficient at the age of about 10.
Okay.
Jason earns the mantle of Robin a short while later by helping Batman apprehend a gang of thieves. Yay! However, he does not wear the Robin costume until 6 months of training. Now, this is where the idea of, quote, Robin training is first introduced in Batman continuity.
Yeah.
Which is basically recycled into Dick Grayson's origin, Tim Drake's origin. This is a big thing for Tim Drake, like we talked about in the lesson. Like, he has to complete Robin training, has to be worthy. And
well, I don't know. I guess in my headcanon, I like to believe that, like, because Bruce didn't know what he was doing and Dick was sort of like acrobatic, like you kind of see that in Robin Year One, that like Dick didn't get the training that he needed.
Yeah, but if depending on which Dick origin you read, he does have sometimes versions of Robin training.
Sure.
So both Bruce and Jason claim that he is wearing a new and improved Robin suit, but it is literally exactly the same as the Dick Grayson era Robin suit with the scaly underoos and little pixie boots.
Yep.
Batman realizes that while Jason does not possess Dick Grayson's acrobatic skill, he can become a productive crime fighter by channeling his rage. He also believes that if he doesn't help the boy, Jason will eventually become part of the, quote, criminal element of Gotham, end quote.
Yeah, he will.
He will. On their first official mission as Batman and Robin, it is discovered that Jason's father was killed by the criminal Two-Face, so not Killer Croc anymore, Two-Face. Furious at the knowledge of this fact and that Batman knew it, Jason goes on a rampage until at last he confronts Two-Face. Rather than kill Harvey Dent, however, Jason masters his rage and lets Dent be arrested, much to Batman's pride, so he's allowed to go on being Robin.
Aw, master the rage.
He doesn't do good. While Jason soon proved to be one of Batman's most enthusiastic students, he was also one of the most troubled. Brash and impulsive, Jason's former life on the streets had left him with an ambiguous sense of right and wrong. And this often placed Jason in opposition to the values his mentor was trying to teach him. Jason uses excessive force to subdue criminals, and in one adventure is asked to hold off the villains. He instantly takes to firing at them with a gun, despite Batman's abhorrence of firearms. So he clearly doesn't understand what he's being told that
I do remember too that there, and you might talk about it a little bit later. There is a story I do know that where it's the idea that there was this guy off the ledge on a rooftop.
We will talk about that.
Okay, I'll stay away from that then.
The most dramatic of these moral clashes, however, happened when Jason tracked down Felipe Garzonasa, a former national who had raped a young woman and later drove her to suicide.
Wow.
Moments after Jason arrived, Felipe plunged to his death from an apartment balcony. While the truth is still unknown, there is a distinct possibility that Jason pushed Felipe off the balcony, thereby breaking Batman's strict code against ever taking a life. And this moment is played out in several flashback scenes and in several different incarnations.
Because there's Batman asks him, like, did he fall or did you push him?
Yes, and Jason says, I think he says it doesn't matter. Or he says, does it matter?
Yeah, something like that. But it's a very interesting idea. I think, in my headcanon, that Jason just watched him slip. I don't think Jason pushed him.
Oh, really?
I think Jason watched him fall. Jason didn't save him.
Jason did the Batman thing and didn't save him?
Yes, he didn't save him. And Batman would have saved him.
I think Jason pushed him.
You think Jason pushed him?
I do.
Interesting. It's interesting to see how we view the character.
I do. And if you only know Jason from like Under the Red Hood, the movie, or maybe the Arkham games, you can already see the basic details of his character and some of the major plot points coming to life in his post-crisis origin, which is kind of cool. So with this uncertainty over whether or not Jason is a murderer, Batman asks Barbara Gordon, you know her.
Who's Batgirl?
To come out of retirement as Batgirl and to work with Jason on a case, hoping that she might gain a better insight into Jason's behavior. Fun fact, at this time, Barbara was working full-time as a librarian, much like her Batman 66 counterpart.
Cool.
Although the pair work well together, Barbara is unable to deny the darkness in Jason, which she later warns Bruce about. Now we come to a little story known as Death in the Family.
Yes.
So little publication history.
Probably Jason Todd's most important story.
Definitely Jason Todd's most important story. Before we launch into the fictional history. So in 1988, Denny O'Neil, famous Batman writer, suggested that the audience might be attracted to comics if they could affect the outcome and influence the creative process of some major plot points.
Yep.
So a poll was set up where fans could vote whether or not Jason Todd would live or die at the end of this storyline. And they chose it to be Jason Todd living or dying because they wanted the event that readers voted on to feel significant and like they were actually affecting the continuity of the stories. And Jason was wildly unpopular with fans at the time.
Yep. So he was voted as murdered. Although there's a lot of
Jason's death was won by somebody using an auto dialer, and it was won by a slim 72 vote margin of 5,343 votes to die to 5,271 votes to live. So actually more individuals voted for him to live, but the auto dialer made more calls, so he died.
Yep.
So yeah, there is a lot of controversy now about whether that should have actually happened.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about that's one of the biggest like comics conspiracies about whether this auto dialer guy actually did, because it's still not certain whether this happened, but people believe
that is the I guess the rumor that we all believe.
The common theory is that like a guy with an auto dialer, a really mad fanboy with an auto dialer, like killed Jason Todd.
Although I will say, knowing the internet, I believe it.
I believe it. I believe it as well. It's also interesting to notice that it was only like 5,000 people, like 10,000 people voted on this. Only 10,000.
Only 10,000.
Especially because comic sales were way higher back then.
They were, but it's hard to get people to engage.
It's true.
So now back to the story of Death in the Family. Jason later discovers that his mother was not or the woman he thought was his mother is not his biological mother, and so he runs away to find the woman who gave birth to him. After following a number of leads, Jason finally tracks his mother, Sheila, to Ethiopia, where she works as an aid worker. I always thought this was strange because, like, being an aid worker is a really, like, kind-hearted thing to do. You're putting others' interests above your own. So why would you have abandoned your child?
I don't know. Let's not judge her.
I'm judging her. While Jason is overjoyed to be reunited with his real mother, he soon discovers that she's being blackmailed by the Joker, who is using her to provide him with medical supplies.
Oh, that happens.
Sure. Sheila herself has been embezzling from the aid agency, and as a part of the cover-up, she hands her own son, who arrives dressed up as Robin, over to the Joker. The Joker beats Jason brutally with a crowbar and then leaves him and Sheila in a warehouse with a time bomb. Sheila and Robin try desperately to get out of the warehouse, but they are still inside as the bomb goes off.
Yep.
Batman arrives too late to save them and is only able to hold Jason's lifeless body in his arms. I like getting emotional talking about this.
And there is actually, you can see, because they drew the ending both ways.
Yes, they did.
And because all they changed was the final panel, or the final page. And then in the page that was published, like, yeah, Jason's dead. And then the page where he lives, he's still holding the body the same way. And then Batman goes like, oh, I hear he's breathing. And then he like looks up at the sky and smiles and it's like, he's alive.
Yeah.
Like, that's the only difference.
And even if you've never read Death in the Family, you have seen this iconic piece of Jim Aparo art where he is holding Jason Todd's
it's on the cover.
body.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's a really striking image. Their bodies are taken back to Gotham City for burial because, of course. And for the next decades worth of stories, Jason's death haunts Batman, who keeps Jason's costume on display in the Batcave.
Although it's not a decade of time in Batman time.
No. In publication history time.
The interesting thing too, and they bring this up in Under the Red Hood and several other storylines. Batman buries Jason in an unmarked grave.
Yes.
Because he doesn't want the connection to be made between Robin, Jason Todd, Robin, and Batman.
Because not a lot of people, or Jason wasn't around long enough within story continuity for everyone in the world to know that he was Bruce's ward.
Yeah.
And Batman considers this to be his greatest failure, not properly training Jason for his role as Robin and failing to protect him from the Joker.
Hold up 1 second, Mine University students. We're going to thank one of our lovely sponsors. Let's give some love to our sponsor, Blue Apron. Now, they are a wonderful company that delivers fresh ingredients and recipes right to your front door. You know, there's that door at the beginning of your house, if you don't know what that is. Now, that makes your cooking very easy because if you're like me, cooking is long and cooking is arduous. And Blue Apron solves all that by giving you a step-by-step, easy recipe card for a meal that you can make in 40 minutes or less.
And Blue Apron's website is super easy to use and offers a ton of variety. New recipes are available every week, and recipes are not repeated within a year. 365 days of new recipes. So your plates are going to look different every time you sit down to your dinner table.
Now, I've made some of these delicious Blue Apron meals, like the Chipotle glazed meatloaf and the Moroccan chicken. It was delicious, and it was easy to make. And they have some awesome upcoming meals like the Parmesan crusted chicken. Sounds delish. So what you want to do is you want to check out this week's Blue Apron menu, and you can get your first 3 meals free. Let me repeat that. 3 meals free with free shipping by going to blueapron.com/lesson. That's LESSON. You will love how good the food feels, how good it tastes, and it will allow you to create some incredible home-cooked meals with Blue Apron, so don't wait.
You like to eat and you like to listen to geek history lessons, so why not do both? And get a great meal for your geeky ears.
Now, there's plenty of promo codes out there, so why not choose ours and help out the Mine University? That's blueapron.com/lesson to get the amazing meals of Blue Apron. A better way to cook.
Now back to the show, students.
All right, so let's get back to some Red Hood. Batman's in a kind of a really mad, kind of irritating place right now because he's just like, oh, Jason.
Right. So Jason's dead. So we basically have to skip all the way forward to the Batman story called Hush.
Yeah.
Because that's the next time he appears.
Written by Jeff Loeb and drawn by the amazing Jim Lee.
Still in print. Really amazing book. So years later, and it's never really clear how many years later.
Let's judge that right now. I think in my head canon, roughly for me, I think Jason was Robin for about a year to 6 months. He wasn't Robin for very long, in my opinion. Because for me, that's the only way you explain how he doesn't have the training that Batman thinks he needs. So he has to, I think, be less than a year. Okay, he dies.
Yeah.
Maybe another 6 months passes before Tim Drake gets to become Robin. Okay.
Max.
And then I think at the time of Hush, Tim Drake is maybe Robin for either 3 to 4 years.
Oh man, your timeline is so compressed compared to mine.
Well, because otherwise Batman's 50 by the time you get to.
I know. I actually calculated this once, and my Batman has to be like 46 at the youngest.
Yeah, like I mean, Batman at the time of Hush.
Cool, Ben Affleck's in his 40s.
Well, yeah, Batman has to be like 40ish or 39 around the time of Hush.
I would say 40, 42. Yeah.
And this is also allowing like a 10-year period where he's raising Dick Grayson.
Right. But in my head canon, he adopts Dick at 20 or 21.
Oh, weird.
I do. Like, I don't have him be Batman in my headcanon on his own for very long.
Oh, you're saying Batman. I thought you meant like Dick Grayson's 21.
Oh, no. Batman's 21.
Yeah. I think Batman's way older than that. He was Batman. But anyways.
We'll do a podcast someday where we talk about our Batman timelines. But
that actually would be a great idea, the Batman timeline.
Great. Someone suggest that.
Let us know on timeline. Like, we will come up with a fictional Batman timeline. I like that idea.
That'd be fun. We could hit up, like, when does this major event happen? Okay, but before we go down that rabbit hole, I always assume that Jason is dead for about 5 years.
Okay, I'll accept that.
So let's say that in continuity, he's been dead for max
5 years.
5 years.
Okay.
So 5 years later, according to our personal timelines, while trying to discover the identity of the mysterious figure plotting against him, who will turn out to be Hush, who is Tommy Elliott, Batman discovers that Tim Drake Robin has been kidnapped. Oh, no. When he confronts the kidnapper, he discovers, much to his surprise, that the kidnapper is apparently an adult Jason Todd. god.
with a gray streak in his hair and sort of wearing a Robinish, like, Hush costume.
It is a Robin-inspired costume. I love the gray streak in the hair.
I do too. I'm kind of
love
mad they
that.
got rid of it.
Yeah, it lives in my head, Kenneth. Batman subdues the mysterious Jason and discovers that it is only Clayface impersonating Jason.
Or so he thinks.
Wahaha. Right. That also depends on how things live in your
It
particular
all
head
depends
canon.
on how true it is from a certain point of view, Luke.
Thank you, Obi-Wan.
You're welcome.
Then Infinite Crisis happens. Jason, Infinite Crisis really quick.
Infinite Crisis, where 3 characters from Crisis on Infinite Earths, we talked about it in this podcast, an old Superman, a young Superman, a Lois Lane, and a Lex Luthor punched the walls of reality so hard that they reset certain things, including a certain Bat sidekick.
That is true. So the events of Infinite Crisis restored Jason to life, and he breaks out of his coffin with his bare hands and fingers, no less, walks away from the graveyard, which is approximated later to be he walks for about 12 miles, before he collapses and is hospitalized as the injuries inflicted by the Joker have not fully healed.
No, I just want to point out real quick that even though we're saying that this happens in Infinite Crisis, it is revealed in Infinite Crisis
that actually happened.
The punches, Superboy punches against the wall that kind of reset continuity.
Yeah.
Are kind of used to explain certain continuity problems. So that actually, like, these punches in reality were Superboy trying to escape, and he doesn't escape actually until Infinite Crisis. But yes, so this happens like maybe a year before Infinite Crisis, somewhere in there.
Yes, for in continuity timeline, but it happens in the story called Infinite Crisis. So after spending a year in a coma and subsequently as an amnesiac vagrant, Jason is recognized by a petty criminal who informs Talia al Ghul of all people. So after some time, Talia restores his health and memory by immersing him in a Lazarus pit in which her father Roz is also bathing. And so he's distracted, so she literally pushes Jason Todd off a cliff into the Lazarus
She was
pit.
not supposed to do this, by the way, either.
She is expressly told not to, and she is not supposed to tell Bruce that Jason is alive. It is suggested at the time that exposure to the pit's energies together with Al Ghul might have affected Jason's personality. So that he's a little angry and doesn't like Batman because Roz doesn't really like Batman either. Because he falls into the same Lazarus pit. Following Talia's advice, Jason determines his death will never be avenged and has never been avenged, and prepares to confront Batman by traveling across the globe in the same path of training as his mentor. So that's why Red Hood is a much more proficient fighter than Jason was when he was Robin. When Batman expresses no remorse for sparing the Joker's life after Jason was killed, Jason is further angered and takes up the mantle of Red Hood. To date, becoming Red Hood is the most defining part of Jason's career.
Well, he's been Red Hood now longer than he's been Robin.
Yes, but when you talk about...
In our time.
Yeah, for sure. But when you talk about Jason Todd, you always talk about him as the Red Hood, and everyone goes, oh, he was the Robin who died. He's much better as Red Hood.
Oh, 100%.
So shortly after the events of War Games and War Crimes, Jason Todd reappears in Gotham City as the Red Hood, hijacking a shipment of kryptonite from Black Mask. Black Mask is kind of going to be a nemesis of his. In the midst of the battle with Batman, Nightwing, and Mr. Freeze, the Red Hood gives them the kryptonite back and tells them he's gotten what he truly wanted, which is, quote, the lay of the land. Shortly afterward, the Red Hood finds the Joker, who was driven out of Gotham by Hush, and beats him with a crowbar just as the Joker had beaten Jason. Despite the violence of the beating, Jason spares the Joker, intending to use him later against Batman because he's smart. The Red Hood then assumes control over several gangs in Gotham City and starts a one-man war against Black Mask's criminal empire. This is also part of the storyline that you see in Under the Red Hood, the animated film. Mm-hmm. He strives to cleanse the city of its corruption, such as drug dealing and gang violence, especially to children on schoolyards, and to kill the Joker in revenge for his own death. Because of his anti-heroic activities, he repeatedly comes to blows with Batman and several members of the Batman family. However, despite his return, Jason's Robin costume remains in its memorial display case in the Batcave. And when Alfred asked Bruce if he wanted the costume removed, Bruce replied that the return of Jason as Red Hood doesn't change anything at all, which I think is really nice, actually.
Then this has all happened in the Judd Winnick story Under the Hood. And at the time... this was huge.
Yes.
It was a big, big deal that Jason Todd came back to life because there used to be 3 deaths in comic books that were always going to be cemented. And
none of them wound up being cemented.
It was Uncle Ben for Spider-Man.
Yeah.
It was Bucky for Captain America, and it was Jason Todd for Batman. And for a long time, it was said they'll never come back. They'll never come back.
Which is funny because Bucky and Jason Todd were both resurrected as pseudo bad guys.
Yes. Now, Bucky was resurrected about 3 to 4 years after this.
Yeah.
But it is in very similar circumstances, which is very interesting. And this was a big deal, especially because when it happened in Hush, and Jawiin talks about this, when the Jason Todd reveal happened in Hush, Jeff Loeb, who wrote Hush, never intended it to be Jason Todd. He just thought this was a cool reveal.
Yep.
And Jawiin thought it was so cool that he started pestering the DC editors to be like, let me bring Jason Todd back. I have a way to do it.
I also think a less skilled writer than Jawiin, because I think very highly of Jawiin.
Oh, Jawiin's great.
Would not have told the story as well as it's been told. This Under the Hood story still stands up as one of the greatest Jason Todd stories of all time.
I would put Under the Red Hood in the, I would say, top 20 Batman stories of all time.
Easy.
It's strong.
It's that
because
good.
They do a thing, especially, I kind of feel like it's Darth Vader as Luke Skywalker's father. It's so out there in the universe now that you know the Red Hood is Jason Todd.
Yeah.
But if you read this story blind, they do a really good job. If you don't know, you shut yourself off to it and you just read the story.
Yeah.
They do a really good job of hiding who it is. Now,
they do.
The movie doesn't.
Well, the movie starts with Jason dying.
Yeah,
The
movie you immediately know, but the comic book, it is a huge shocker.
Yeah.
When you read that turn.
Yeah, it's great. It's very well handled. So, knowing that Tim Drake has not only replaced him as Robin, but is reportedly a better Robin, he is, than Jason had ever been.
Again, that was Ashley's bias and not academic.
It is academic. Tim Drake is the best Robin.
That is Ashley's bias and not academic at all. Dick Grayson's best Robin.
Jason breaks into Titan's Tower and confronts Tim, wearing an altered version of his own Robin costume.
Yeah, I don't like this story at all.
I don't either.
Because of that.
Jason quickly, if he'd just been Red Hood, it would have been so much better.
Yep.
Jason quickly immobilizes the other Titans and strikes Tim down in the Titans' Hall of Fallen the Tower's Hall of Fallen Titans. Sorry. He is furious that there is no memorial statue made for him despite his short tenure as a Titan, and he wasn't a very good one. Jason demands that Tim tells him if he is really as good as Jason has been told. Tim says yes, and then passes out, which is also something I don't like. As Jason leaves, he tears the R emblem from Tim's chest, and in the epilogue, Jason has apparently developed a grudging respect for his replacement, and he states, quote, "I'll admit, he's good," end quote, because he is. Jason is also left wondering if perhaps he would have been a better Robin and a better person if he'd had a life like Tim's and friends like the Titans, not the cards that he was dealt. The next thing he does is kidnap the Joker and hold him hostage again, luring Batman to Crime Alley, the site of their very first meeting. Remember that? Remember when we talked about that?
And this is the climax of Under the Hood.
Yes.
Yes.
Jason asks Batman why he has not avenged his death by killing the Joker, and Batman tells Jason that he will never cross that line. An enraged Jason explains that even ignoring all the people he's killed and the crippling of Batgirl, he believed that after his death at the hands of the Joker, he'd finally be able to kill him, quote, "doing it because he took me away from you," end quote. It's, again, a really great line. Despite this, Batman explains that it is not too hard for him to kill the Joker, that it would be too easy. He has never once not fantasized about taking the Joker somewhere private and torturing him for maybe weeks before killing him, but he refuses to go to that place.
Which is a sequence that you actually see in Batman Hush.
Yes.
You see Batman dreaming about killing the Joker. Let's talk about this for a quick second here.
Okay.
Do you agree with Jason? Should Batman have killed the Joker after Jason Todd's death?
Yes.
Is this ruining something that you're going to have in discussion later on? If
No,
so, we'll stop.
I don't know if we're going to get to discussion. This lesson might get too long.
Okay.
No, we can talk about it. No, I think Batman should kill the Joker. I think especially the way Jason Todd lays it out, yeah. I know that is a code that he has, or Batman should allow an agent to kill the Joker.
I think Batman should have convinced Azrael to go in there and lop off the Joker's head. I don't think Batman should do it because I agree, and this kids is why I will choose Superman over Batman, because everybody's like, oh, I love Batman. Batman is a psychopath.
He is.
And he is right. If Batman gets a taste of blood once, he's just going to keep going for it.
Right. For me, it doesn't have to be Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
But yeah, Azrael or Cassandra or
Lady Shiva.
anyone. There's no.
Ra's al Ghul would have done it if he asked.
Talia would have done it.
Yeah. Talia is exactly right. Talia would have done it. If he asked Talia would have gone
And you know what?
there.
It really should be Talia because Talia saved Jason.
Yep.
So I think there is no reason other than the fact that Hot Topic heroes really, really love the Joker and consumers love the Joker. There's no reason for that character to live.
Yep.
I will give you all the rest of the Rogues Gallery, but not the Joker. The Batman should have allowed the Joker to die.
I think it'd be an interesting storyline to have the Joker die.
DC Comics can hire us at any time to write that Elseworlds.
Sure.
We would love to. So Jason offers Batman an ultimatum. Jason will kill the Joker unless Batman kills Jason first. Holding the Joker at gunpoint, Jason throws a pistol to Batman and begins to count to 3 while standing behind the Joker, leaving Batman with only a headshot if he wants to stop Jason pulling the trigger. At the last moment, Batman throws a batarang that cuts down an object and slices Jason's neck. Ew. And the Joker takes advantage of the situation, detonating nearby explosives that engulf the platform they are on and send them plunging into the bay. Jason resurfaces, get it, in the 1 year later event, patrolling the streets of New York City as a murderous version of Nightwing.
Yep, wearing a Nightwing costume.
Yes, can you tell us really quickly what 1 year later is?
1 year later is after that big event we talked about, Infinite Crisis, all the DC storylines in continuity pushed ahead 1 year, so it allowed the characters to be in new situations. Like, before Infinite Crisis, there was a town called Bloodhaven.
Yes.
In Infinite Crisis, Bloodhaven was blown up, so Nightwing, Dick Grayson, moved to New York. Like, that was a change in status quo. And Batman and the two Robins, Dick Grayson and Tim Drake, they went on a year-long trip training.
Yep.
And so now they're back. Things are different. We're in New York.
Jason shows no intention of giving up the Nightwing persona and continues to taunt Dick Grayson by wearing the costume and suggesting that the two become a crime-fighting team. Jason refuses to join his side and methods of crime fighting as they are too extreme. Not long after the two Nightwings meet up, Jason is captured and imprisoned by unknown mobsters. He is rescued by a reluctant Grayson, and the two join forces to defeat the Pierce brothers, who are the ones who captured him in the first place.
Yep.
And don't worry about never having heard about them. They're kind of silly.
Well, I will say that storyline is not a great storyline. I can't remember who the writer. I think it's Chuck Austin is the writer of that. Chuck Jones, somebody that. It's Charles something is his name.
Yeah.
It's called Blood Brothers.
Yes.
It's an okay storyline. It's not great. Do you want to know the behind-the-scenes secret about why Jason Todd is Nightwing in that book?
Sure.
Because in the original storyline of Infinite Crisis, Dick Grayson was supposed to die.
Yes, that's true.
Mr. Publisher Dan DiDio, a great guy, friend of the podcast. He wanted Dick Grayson to die, and he kind of put it out there to his staff that he was like, I think we should kill Nightwing because we already have a Robin.
Yeah.
And apparently, from what I understand from this story, which I think is great, the DC editors and artists and writers at the time were like, no, you cannot kill Dick Grayson. They were like, he's too important to Batman. And so the death became Superboy, Connor Kent, instead of Dick Grayson. So apparently, originally for 1 year later, Nightwing was supposed to be Jason Todd.
Yep.
And the reason why Jason Todd is in that storyline as Nightwing is because the writer only slightly changed his scripts to include Dick Grayson.
I just wanted to bring that story up too, even though, like you said, it's maybe not Jason's best story. It's one of his only direct interactions with Dick Grayson.
Besides like Batman and Robin.
Right.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to highlight it for that
sure.
reason. So Jason leaves New York City and the Nightwing mantle to Dick Grayson, along with a telegram.
Good.
Because we still had telegrams telling Grayson that he has returned to normal and still considers them family. Aw. He goes on to appear as a supporting character in several Green Arrow issues, where he kidnaps Mia Dearden, who was Speedy at the time, in an effort to convert her to his side, and is unsuccessful because he's like, hey, we both got the short end of the stick. Nobody was ever nice to us. We should team up. And she's like, yeah, thanks, but no thanks. He resumes his mantle as the Red Hood during Countdown, where he is in conflict with Duella Dent, a.k.a. Two-Face's daughter.
Which eventually turns into Countdown to Final Crisis.
Yes. And then his next major
Terrible book.
appearance is in something called Batman R.I.P.
Yes.
And Jason breaks out his old trick, taking control of the gangs of Gotham. He is unsuccessful, and it just leads to more bloodshed. With both Nightwing and Batman unavailable, it falls to Tim Drake to deal with the mess Jason has created. However, Jason asks Tim to join forces with him, though Tim, of course, refuses on the grounds that Jason's method are too questionable. This leads to a confrontation between Jason and Tim Drake, during which Jason winds up shot in the leg and arrested by the police. He really gets the short end of the stick there.
Yep.
Upon the resolution of the gang war in Gotham, Tim Drake, under the pseudonym under a pseudonym, visits Jason in prison.
I think it's Alvin Draper, right?
I believe it is.
That was always Tim Drake's alias. Like matches Malone as Bruce Wayne. I think Alvin Draper
it's
was
his
always
default one. Tim has 3 or 4 of them.
Mm-hmm.
But that's his like business guy pseudonym. In prison he visits Jason in prison to give him the Justice League access code to release himself from prison, due primarily to the fact that Tim believes that Jason should be given another chance at redemption. This is something where Tim really differs from Dick. Tim believes that Jason can be redeemed. Dick is like, he's kind of a lost cause.
And this is kind of the beginning of this relationship that continues in the New 52 of Tim Drake and Jason Todd sort of being friends.
Yeah, you see that a lot.
Behind the backs of the other Robins.
I actually really like that. You see it a lot in the Robin War storyline too. Like they work together. Following his escape, Jason continues on the mend and is summoned by Tim to come to the Batcave, where Batman has left his last will and testament statement for him that each have an individual like recording. After hearing the statement in private, Jason prepares to leave, not revealing what he was told, although he does pause before his old costumes and the tattered remains of Batman's. It is later revealed that the message left for Jason was of Bruce admitting that of all his failures, Jason was the biggest. We already knew that. Bruce states that he regrets never offering Jason any help or feeling for his obvious emotional hardships, but instead dressing him up as a Robin and putting him in constant danger. Then, Battle for the Cowl ensues, which is basically where all the Robins have to decide who's going to be Batman.
And they all dress up as Batman. All of them, even Jason Todd.
They do. So we're going to talk about it, where Jason has escaped from prison. That was fast. He apparently decided to put in a bid for the Bat Mantle. He wears a black and gray bat suit and wields 2 handguns and various other weapons.
Yep.
He also wears...
They made an action figure of that.
It's a great costume. He also wears a mouth plate, which probably obscures his voice and gives it more of an armored, I think, scarier look to the costume.
He looks like a scary version of Batman with machine guns.
Yeah.
Yep.
He is also living and operating out of an abandoned Gotham subway system, which is kind of a cool idea. Jason begins his war on crime using the lethal tactics and leaving slips of paper saying, "I am Batman," just everywhere in his wake. After Jason manages to take down a group of thugs, he then escapes, only to have Nightwing and Damian on his tail. After a short quarrel, Damian is shot by Jason. At the same time, Tim Drake begins a search to stop the imposter and dresses as Batman in order to demonstrate how the real Batman would have acted.
But in the 1980s Batman suit, so it's like bright blue with the yellow oval behind the bat
Yeah,
suit.
it's really cool.
Yeah.
And I think that's a neat callback for Tim Drake because his origins are right at the end of the 80s.
Well, yeah, and that's the suit that Batman was wearing when he became Robin.
Yes, that is true. Tim finds Jason Todd's Batcave in the subway station and is saved from a booby trap by Catwoman, who knows that it is Tim behind the mask and not one of the other Robins. Jason ambushes them, disposing of Catwoman, and then getting in a fight with Tim before impaling him in the chest with a batarang, exclaiming, "One more to go," because he's kind of taken out all of his competition as he goes through the story. In retaliation for what happened to Damian, remember he got shot in the leg by Jason?
Yep.
Nightwing goes out to fight Jason again, intending to take him down once and for all. Dick also has several storylines where he's kind of like, I'm just going to kill Jason because he shouldn't be around. And this is one of them. The pair battle, all the while with Jason claiming that Tim is dead, unaware that Tim survived and was saved by Damian and the Squire. The battle accumulates with Nightwing kicking Jason off a speeding train. It's actually a really cool panel. Jason survived his fall, of course, and gives up his claim to the Bat Mantle. Dick is now Batman, and Jason set out to become Dick's direct competition, once again taking up the mantle of Red Hood, although he does rework this identity to be a little more dramatic and attention-grabbing by creating a new costume.
Yeah, this costume, I actually really like this costume because it's like more superhero-y, so it's like red and black, and it has like a red cape, and then he also gets a sidekick. And again, this is during Grant Morrison's Batman and Robin, so like, yeah, this is a Red Hood that he's like, I'm a vigilante that's going to kill criminals because I'm better than Batman.
Yes. And a lot of people like to describe this costume as being more like the Red Hood costume that the Joker wore back in his day.
Close, yeah.
It's more like a melding between the two.
Yeah.
Also, he stops dyeing his hair black during this time, allowing it to grow red again with a small gray streak left from his previous exposure to the Lazarus Pit. And to complete his transformation, he even found a sidekick, like Jason said. The sidekick is named Scarlet. She is the daughter of a criminal and a victim of Professor Pig's practice of mutilation. His intent was for them to become Gotham City's new dynamic duo, supplanting the old one whose time had passed. Jason also started using the internet to expose his methods of dealing with crime and... actually had the favor of the public on his side for quite a while.
He did.
he gains more popularity when he shared a video of Batman and Robin protecting the Penguin from himself and Scarlet. That lasted until he tracked down a criminal who got away from him to finish what he had started. Batman and Robin arrive to stop him, and the two duos fight. The fight went in Jason's favor, and instead of the two heroes capturing him, he captured them, stripped them naked, and locked them out of his way for the time being, which is kind of extreme even for Jason Todd. His plan was to reveal to the world on a Twitter web stream the identities of Batman and Robin and let the public decide what they wanted to do with them. This plan ground to a halt when Red Hood and Scarlet were ambushed by an assassin named Flamingo, who shot Jason in the head twice with a sniper rifle and shattered his helmet. Batman and Robin freed themselves, put their clothes back on, and were able to save Jason and Scarlet from being killed by Flamingo because they're still good guys at their core.
And Flamingo works for Dr. Hurt, who is the
Yes.
main villain of Batman R.I.P., who is technically the guy who sort of killed or had something to do with the death of Bruce.
Yeah. Jason used the dynamic duo as cover and proceeded to crush Flamingo with a truck, while Damian threw himself in front of an attack to save Scarlet, leaving him crippled. Scarlet escaped, and Jason was again taken into police custody. As he was dragged away, however, he shouted at Dick that if the Lazarus Pit could revive him from the dead, why didn't Dick use it on Bruce? Which is a fair question.
Which actually leads into Dick's next storyline, which, we talked a little bit about in the Dick Grayson Geek lesson.
Yes, we did. When Jason is freed, he is accepted back into the Bat family with reticence, because he always is, but is moved to Arkham Asylum, where he is held for observation for several months. Bruce Wayne is revived, and as Batman, he visits him there to inform Jason that he's at Arkham for his own protection. Jason is then transferred to a Gotham prison where he kills 82 inmates and injures more than 100 more. It is revealed that there was a bounty placed on Jason's head by an unknown assailant, so Dick and Damian break him out of prison like you do. And then his next major appearance is in the New 52. Jason, real quick, what is the New 52?
Well, the New 52 is when DC Comics did another reboot similar to Crisis on Infinite Earths, which we previously talked about. And in this time, Barry Allen went back in the past and he created a new timeline. It was a terrible timeline. And when he recreated the timeline again, we got the New 52. And now again, everything you've read before sort of didn't happen with the exception of Batman and Green Lantern.
Yes.
So Batman's timeline happened, Green Lantern's timeline happened, but Superman, Wonder Woman, all the rest of them, brand new.
Hard reboot. So in the New 52, Jason leads a team called the Outlaws. He wears the bat symbol on his chest to show that he is part of the Bat family and on his way to reformation, kind of. This series focuses on Jason Todd, Roy Harper, who is Arsenal at the time, and Princess Coriander of Tamaran Starfire, atoning for their sins and protecting the world from threats derivative from their own past. So every villain that they face is either someone that they faced before or connected to someone that they faced before. Readers learn that Jason was involved with a magical order called the All-Caste that Talia put him into after he was revived, and he uses his training with them to avenge the murders of most of their remaining members. It also deals with the romantic tension between the three team members and Jason's difficult relations with other members of the Bat family, often putting him at odds with Dick Grayson and Damian Wayne. And then Jason is, of course, a part of the current comics continuity, but we're not going to talk about that so that we don't spoil anything. And that is all of your comic book history on Jason Todd.
Well, let's real quick. There was one thing that I think is really important to the character of Jason Todd that does happen in the New 52 that I really would like to talk about just very briefly.
Sure, absolutely.
There is, if you know about Batman Incorporated, it's eventually revealed that Talia is the villain that is like screwing up Batman Incorporated, because Bruce, when he comes back to life, he incorporates Batman, he makes it into a company, and he puts Batmans in every city.
Yes, and he very publicly says that I fund Batman.
Yes, and so Talia comes up against him. Now, Talia has, of course, as we say, a relationship with Jason Todd, of course, and Bruce.
She's an affinity for him.
Batman Inc. shows us the storyline where Batman forgives Red Hood and brings Red Hood back into the family. Now, in my headcanon, Batman Inc. takes place before Red Hood and the Outlaws.
Even though in publication history, not as much.
Yes, even though in publication they were happening at the same time.
Yes.
Just for the fact that in the storyline, there is this character called Wingman. He's kind of like a more techno-armored Batman.
Yeah.
And you see him all the time. You never see him with his mask off. And he helps Damian and he helps Bruce throughout the storyline. In the, I think, almost last issue or second to last issue, Wingman takes off his mask and it's Jason Todd.
Mm-hmm.
And you learn that like Bruce gave Jason Todd this job and was kind of like, watch Damian, keep Damian safe.
Yeah.
And Jason Todd did it. And through that action and through Bruce forgiving him and Jason Todd being a good guy, this is in my headcanon what leads Jason Todd to put the bat symbol on his chest. Now, again, I know that like it's a little bit out of thing, but like
It is.
if you take that storyline as happening right before Red Hood and the Outlaws, it helps Red Hood and the Outlaws make more sense. It helps the New 52 make sense because in the New 52, Red Hood is very chummy with Batman, and and Batman's okay with them.
Can I tell you something that
Yeah.
I've always thought about that? I think that Jason agrees to watch over Damian for Talia, not for Bruce.
I'll accept that. That's a very interesting point.
And that's the Jason and Talia relationship is something that I would love to see explored more
Yes.
in coming comics because you're never going to get to see her have a close relationship with Damian because Damian's made a choice.
Yeah.
But I think it'd be interesting if she kind of like surrogate son Jason Todd a little bit.
Interesting. That's he's the son that like he's sort of the son that like represents her ideals more.
Yeah, and
than
she
her own
saved
son.
him. She did what no other parent has ever done for Jason.
It's true.
So
there you go.
There
yeah.
you go.
Yeah, and you
that was
said
a great point. Thank you for
well,
bringing that up.
I just think that's a pretty important storyline to explaining like why he's a good guy now.
Yes, yeah,
because
yeah.
now he's sort of
Because otherwise, I guess it's a little too convenient.
It is, and they never really quite explain like why Batman's suddenly okay with this dude.
I do like him wearing the bat symbol on his chest, though.
I do too.
Even if he remains like the questionable member of the family,
Jason Todd's,
he should be included.
Jason Todd's best costume is the New 52 costume. He has the brown jacket, the red bat symbol, and
the motorcycle helmet.
And the motorcycle
The
helmet.
motorcycle helmet is the best Red Hood helmet,
and
too.
there's an awesome action figure of it, and we have it, and it's awesome.
That's a true fact.
All right, cool. So that's it for Jason Todd.
That is it for Jason Todd.
Yay! Cool. All right, so let's move on into recommended reading, where we give you our recommendations on what you want to read if you want to read more Jason Todd. And if you do want to read Jason Todd, I suggest going to geekhistorylesson.com/recommended reading. You'll find nice little Amazon widgets there of all of these choices. You can click on them, go buy them on Amazon, and you know what? A little bit of that comes back our way to the Mining University. So, Ashley, what are our 3 choices for Jason Todd Red Hood?
Our 3 choices for Jason Todd Red Hood are, of course, Under the Red Hood. We talked a lot about the events that happened in that storyline. It is unquestionably Jason Todd's best story. It is in print. Go and pick it up.
And it's a new collection that collects both versions because I have the version.
Yes.
I have the old versions where it's like 2 volumes.
Yes. And even if you've seen the movie, the book goes into a lot more depth. I would still recommend picking up if you are interested in that.
There's enough differences there.
And my second recommendation is going to be Red Hood Lost Days. This deals with Talia bringing Jason back to life, Jason striking out and going back to Gotham, going through the same training arc as Bruce, and deciding who he's going to be now that he's back alive. It is really, really good. And
Yep,
it's got
I like that book a lot.
Beautiful art.
Yep.
And then my third recommendation is Batman R.I.P. because I think Batman...
Not Battle for the Cow.
Not Battle for the Cowl.
Interesting.
I think Batman R.I.P. is a better story than Battle for the Cowl, even though it features Jason less. But I think it's important because you get a sense of his emotional relationship with Bruce and with the other Robins. I like it for that reason. And it's got a really cool cover. So
Cool.
Batman R.I.P. And then supplemental reading if you want it. Battle for the Cowl. Follow us up. Batman R.I.P. Direct.
Or I also saw supplemental Red Hood and the Outlaws Volume 1.
There you go.
There
So
you
you got extra supplemental reading.
All right, cool. Professor Ashley,
Yes.
do we have enough time for discussion or should we move on?
I do not think we have enough time for discussion.
Because there's a long
It is
Robin
good.
episode.
It has been a long Red Hood episode.
And we don't want to get you in and out of here in around an hour. All right, so let's move on into the last section, the teaching tweet, where Ashley's going to sum up Red Hood, Jason Todd in 140 characters or less, just like Twitter.
Jason Todd, the forgotten Robin who smokes on rooftops. He'll probably shoot you, but it's actually to save your life.
It's a fair point. Shooting to save your life. It's a good distinction.
Thank you.
All right, guys, that is it for the Geek History lesson on Red Hood, Jason Todd. But stick around. Don't go anywhere because we want to tell you, don't forget to subscribe and listen and download this podcast on iTunes, Audio Boom, SoundCloud, lots of places. And when you go over to iTunes, please go over there, leave us a review, because if you don't know, the iTunes search algorithm uses ratings and reviews to suggest podcasts to listeners, and we need your help to go over there and do that. And you know what? If you leave us a review, we're going to read it on the podcast, like
Heck
this one
yeah.
that Ashley has.
This is from No Beard the Pirate, and it says unbelievable with about 6 exclamation points. I appreciate every
I
single
think
one
that
of
said,
them.
unbelievable!
There you go. It says, every time I listen to this podcast, I'm instantly smarter and a better human being. That's the nicest thing anyone's ever said about us. Great subject matter. They really work great together, almost like a dynamic duo. Yes!
That fits in with the Robin episode.
Give them a listen, and I assure you, if you have the smallest amount of it should say nerd blood, but it says need blood. If you have the smallest amount of nerd blood running through your veins, you will love it. Keep on keeping on. Thank you so much, No Beard the Pirate. That's
a great username,
very
by the way.
kind.
That's very kind. Thank you, No Beard. That's awesome. So go over there, leave us a review just like No Beard. We'll read it on the podcast. Also, guys, if you want to suggest further lessons, geek history lessons, just like Red Hood, where can they do that, Ashley?
See, sometimes it takes a little while, but we always get to the requests. You can do that at facebook.com/geekhistorylesson or geekhistorylesson.com. There's a bunch of different ways to contact us in both of those places.
And people, I always see messages where they like send us messages and they're like, I'm not certain if this is where I'm supposed to do it. And it's like, yes, this is where you're supposed to do it.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where you do it. Comment, send a message. It's where you do it.
However, we will find it.
Very similar. Go find us on Twitter. You can complain at me about Red Hood at Jawiin, Jawiin. You can do the same for Ashley at Ashley V.
Send me tell-us pictures of Jason Todd.
At Ashley V. Robinson. And literally, seriously, tweet us over there. Let us know if you want us to do the Batman fictional timeline, or we could even do the Superman fictional timeline. So we will take the events of
the major
Batman,
events.
the major events of canon. So like when he gets new Robins, when Contagion happens, whatever, and we will apply what we think are real years to that.
I so want to do this.
This will take a little bit of work, but I think it would be such a fun episode because we will age every character as well. Like so we will be like, okay, Batman is now 46, Batman is 50, whatever. And I think it would be interesting. It'll take some interesting time because especially like the new 52, like how do we include those events in there? And
it'll be weird.
It'll be really weird. We'll have to we have to ignore the new 52. Like we'll have to be like, we cannot be in the constraint of 5 years.
No, you can't. We can take major events from the new 52.
We'll take like Death in the Family, Court of Owls. We'll throw that in there, stuff like that. But yeah, we'll have to basically ignore all that stuff.
We'll have to ignore every reboot. That's just...
We'll put every story of Batman...
in a linear timeline.
In a linear, real-world timeline.
It's going to be so much fun.
That'll be really interesting. I'd love to do that with Superman as well.
Yeah, we could do it with Wonder Woman. You could do
Wonder
it with
Woman,
basically any hero.
Yeah,
but Batman seems like the best one to start with.
Batman seems like a good one to start with. So if you want the fictional timeline of Batman or the Batman timeline explained...
Yeah.
Maybe that's a good way to call it. I don't know. Let us know on Twitter, guys. Okay, so that is it. Red Hood, as I said, goodbye. Thank you so much. For Geek History Lesson, I am Jason Orange Hood Inman.
I am Ashley Victoria Robinson.
And Professor Ashley, in your best Red Hood way, will you please close out the podcast?
Class is dismissed to jump into the Lazarus pit.